This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
Yeah, we're so happy you're here with us today.
Yeah.
So Josh, I want to talk to you about writing today.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, I want to let everybody know, it says people follow this. I've been getting lots of emails and texts about it. I wrote a letter of formal complaint against the therapist that we've been talking about. I turned that in. I also found out a couple locations. We live in Virginia, so I wanted to find out the certification board, the ones in charge of therapists, and so I'm also sending that to them. There's going to be more than one, but so like Virginia Board of Health. Anyway, that's just one, but. Anyway, so that's getting taken care of. People want to know about that.
Yeah.
And so I turned that in, and we'll see what happens. I feel like in my conversation with the head of that practice, I felt like she heard what I was saying. She understood what we both felt, and that she's taking seriously. We'll find out. If she's not, then we'll be loud and include their name, their practice in this area. I will be loud. You don't have to be loud. I will, which means basically I'm just going to go, to public with that information. So anyway, there we go. So I want to talk to you about writing.
Okay.
Yeah. I came across this article, and I thought it's not new, but it got me thinking about who you are and the struggles that you've had. So the study found that children with what they are calling in this article high functioning autism spectrum disorder, integrated in regular schools, which you were, they find it difficult to perform writing tasks. And they went on to say that it can impair their academic achievements, social availability, and self-confidence.
Yeah.
And I just saw that. I'm always reading different articles, about autism, and this one stuck with me. It just kind of got my attention because I thought, well, that's kind of common knowledge. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about what you went through and what you're doing right now. Because what's interesting is that I came across this article, and then you told me about something that you've been working on and that you've accomplished.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just pretty fitting. So writing in school was very, very difficult for you.
Absolutely it was.
And people that are on the spectrum, I said that weird. I know, I had to correct it because I know you're already giving me a look. Yeah. So, though people on the spectrum are very hard on themselves. Yeah. I feel like. Yeah. I know that you oftentimes are like a perfectionist. So, what was, when you were in school, the hardest part about writing? Should I break that down?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start it a different way.
Okay.
Is typing and using a computer easier than writing with a pen or a pencil?
It is 100%. Reason being, with a computer, if you think of something else, you can quick write it down, then go back to your initial sentence and fit it in wherever you need it. Whereas whenever you're writing with a pen or pencil, you can't do that very easily. You can write on something else, yes, but that could throw off the entire thing, and you'd have to rewrite the entire thing. Or erase something. And one of the biggest issues that I came across, for me personally, was if I thought of something better or I came up with another idea or sentence or something that sounded really good, I would forget my initial thought after I erased it to put in the new sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, sometimes I'd erase it, and then I'd go to write down the new sentence, and it wouldn't be there.
To me, that's called a rough draft. Right? A rough draft is the first draft or the second draft. It's
Right.
the initial process
Right.
of writing something. I'm going to show you something right now that I don't know if I can find it here. Maybe I can't. Anyway, I know where it is because it's in Word. It's in a different thing. So look at this. I know people can't hear me,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to read those because that's
Right.
But what I'm showing Josh is that I have an iPad, iPad Pro, I think. I don't know. It's the kind that has the pencil with it.
Yeah.
So what I do is I write things in Word, and I type them all out. Everything is as a Word document. And then I go in and
Hand write with the pencil thing.
yes, I draw through things. I
Yeah.
add things.
You star things. You rewrite things.
I use different colors
Yeah.
to let me know what's what.
Yeah.
When I write for stand up, I would every time I would have a set list,
Mm-hmm.
and the new things that I'm trying for the first time are in red.
Yes.
If I've tried them, that time they work. I try them again; they're in green. Hopefully by that time I've got it figured out.
Yeah.
And then it goes in regular black.
Mm-hmm.
It's got an asterisk in front of it. After that, the third time, then I'm good to go. But what I'm saying to you is that for me, in my mind, what you're talking about is like a rough draft. To me, like it's a starting point. It's the first time out. It's writing, getting the ideas out. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
For you, for some reason that I would love to hear, why does it have to be perfect the first time?
In my mind, it's not that it has to be perfect. Okay, maybe a little bit, but
Yes.
but it's that there's so many different ways that I could say what I want to say, and I want for it to be the right way, the first time.
But it's so intense for you that oftentimes you're frozen before you can write the first word.
Yeah.
And in school, people get tested, and there's essays that need to be written. There's short stories.
Yeah.
And that was something that was such a struggle for you. And it didn't matter if you had more time, which is a separate category that is difficult for you.
Right.
Something that's timed.
Yeah.
You even if you can do it in the time that you're allotted, there's something that happens. I don't know if that you know that you're being timed. I don't know. Do you know? But it's really difficult for you to accomplish those tasks that are timed.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's just that you're timed. You could do it if you weren't being timed. You could do it,
right?
Maybe, but
it's a little more complicated than that. But yeah,
what is it?
That's part of it. That's most of it. But it's also that. Oh my gosh! I have to get this done in this amount of time. Do I have enough time? And this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it stresses me out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very difficult for me to do that.
Mm-hmm. I think we're talking about the same thing. I think we're talking about the same thing because I'm thinking if you know that you're going to be timed, then it's difficult for you to accomplish it because of everything that comes into that, the stress that you feel.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about all the things that are going on in your head because you're being timed.
Yeah.
And it stresses you out.
Yeah.
And it interferes. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same concept there. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But when you were in school, there were you had an IEP.
Mm-hmm.
And in that
individualized education plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you would have these adaptations in place,
Mm-hmm.
so that you would have more time, or you would be able to do the writing somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You would go into learning support.
Yeah.
But something that's interesting to me is that a lot of people on the spectrum that I know are incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
And we joke about this, like you would quiz me as you were growing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not because you didn't know the answer, but just to see if I knew the answer.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it got to a point where I would say to you, do you need the answer, or are you just seeing if I know the answer? So I would just, every time you'd ask me a question.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's frustrating because there's this intellect that often doesn't reveal itself in testing.
Right.
Or in writing.
Right.
Because there's so much more than just writing going on.
Right.
And I just thought that is something that you've dealt with your whole life, and now you just came to me and said that you've accomplished something that has always been hard for you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's changed?
For one, there was an increase in one of my medications. Mm-hmm. So that's one aspect of it.
Okay. If I could just...
Yeah.
Okay. So medication is something that we have gone back and forth on.
Yeah.
I pushed it off and pushed it off and pushed it off. And,
yeah.
And we sometimes give you a break from medication through the years, supervised.
Yes, to make sure
with the doctor.
Yeah, to make sure that things are working the way that they should.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you are on medication, you have to have blood work done to make sure that, because it can affect organs. And so it's not something that we take lightly.
Right.
And for you, it does seem like medication helps you a lot.
Yes.
Not just from us observing you, but you feel better.
Yeah.
And so the medication that you're talking about now, because anybody that's listened to the last couple of podcasts, the last, maybe, I don't know, 4 podcasts, something like that, you were dealing with depression again.
Yeah.
And it felt different than it used to, but it's really been interfering in your life and affecting you.
Yes.
That medication was increased, and that's been for a little bit now. And then most recently, the medication for ADD was increased.
Yes.
And since that medication was increased, you seem to be much more balanced, I guess, as far as you accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and you're more present and you're more available.
Okay.
That's the way it seems to me. Can you tell us how you feel?
Like, I don't mean to be flippant, but like me.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No, I have noticed a bit of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
For me, though, while I am very in tune with how I feel about things, it's not always easy to discern the differences between past me and now me.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So.
That was one aspect.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what the other ones now are, but I remember I had said that's the first part, but I don't remember the rest now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know either. So
Do you remember the question?
Nope.
It was about writing.
It was about writing. So what the whole thing is that when you were, growing up,
Mm-hmm.
you had some testing.
What changed?
Yeah. Okay.
That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, growing up, you had a very difficult time writing,
Yeah.
and it's something that you love reading.
Yeah.
When you do write, it's amazing, but it was always something it caused so much stress for you.
Mm.
And recently, you wrote something,
Yeah.
and it's out there for people to read.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what changed.
Well,
You said the medication.
yes. The medication.
That was the first one.
Yeah. And sometimes I just get in the mood to do things.
Okay.
And like, for example, with this, I thought of something and I wanted to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me 5. Yeah. That's cool.
And I mean, I make it sound easy just by saying it like that, but it really can be very difficult for me to even get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Because we were just talking, is that you have amazing ideas, but you find it so difficult to even start. And I don't know if it's the fear of failure. Is it that you're concerned that it's not going to be perfect? You're concerned that you're going to make a mistake? Is it
part of it in regards to writing stories?
Mm-hmm.
I have to take into consideration where I want to go with the story and think long term. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And as you know, those are both very difficult for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be able to think of something and be able to write it out in such a manner that I approve of,
Mm-hmm.
that I find acceptable, is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And with this particular thing, it was actually the second chapter I had written. The first chapter was over 2 years ago.
Okay.
Or at least over a year ago. So almost 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That I wrote that part too.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was another time where I had an idea and I moved through with it. And I got stuck a couple sentences into chapter 2.
Okay.
And I came back to it just a couple nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
No, just last night, I think. No, it was 2 nights ago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Yeah, 2 nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it in like an hour.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that you feel good about it because you wanted to talk about writing on this podcast.
Yeah.
And it's not often that you go, I have an idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that it's pretty cool and it means a lot to you.
Yeah.
So you wrote, is it a chapter of a book? Is it a collection? Is it going to be like a collection, or how is it? And what is it, and where is it? That's a lot of things. I'll remind you.
Okay. First one?
How was it, like a chapter?
Yes. In a book or something, yeah.
Okay.
It's a fan fiction, which means that it is based off of an already published work.
Okay.
In this case, Harry Potter.
Oh, is it Harry Potter?
Yes.
Do you keep the same names then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some of them.
Right.
Some of them.
Now,
yeah.
fan fiction is huge, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Is it something that somebody like me that would be able to find, like if you go into a store and you see it in a store?
It won't be in a store.
Because, no. So...
It's all online.
Okay.
Because the rights are not owned by us.
Okay.
Of the characters and things like that. Because
okay.
it's fan fiction.
Mm-hmm. Fan fiction.
Fan fiction,
Got
yes.
it. Okay. So you're a fan.
And you're making fiction based off of an already existing piece.
Okay. Okay. So nobody makes money off of this.
Right.
It's just for the enjoyment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have seen so many stories that have literally millions of words.
Wow.
In one story.
Is that the kind of stuff that you're reading a lot on your phone? It's fan fiction?
That's what I'm mainly reading, yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, and there's just so much.
Yeah.
That you're never reading the same...
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've actually read a lot of it now. But it's really cool because, I mean, I checked right before we started this podcast today. I have 77 favorites and 114 followers for this story.
Wow. And you just put it up.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, so what is the site? Where can people find it? What's the name of the site?
Fanfiction dot net.
Fanfiction.net.
Yes.
Okay. And so they go to that site.
Mm-hmm.
And how do they find you?
I mean, I can give the URL for mine, but
Do you have is it your name? Is it your
no?
What,
because
do they look under the title or? How do people follow you?
They find the stories either by going to my page that I have that has the list of all my stories, or they see that I favorited somebody else's work and they click the link back to my stuff.
Okay.
Or they even just do a search, and I can give you the URL right now for my page.
If that's how people can find you,
yeah.
Then I don't know. I
yeah.
Whatever it is that you feel comfortable giving out, and that's going to help somebody find what you just created. I think that's awesome. Whatever you need to give.
Sure. Fanfiction.net /u/6977075.
Okay, do that again.
Fanfiction.net /u/6977075. And it will come up with my username of Spartan number 029.
Okay. All right, got it. What's the name of the story?
It's a crossover, which means it's two fan fictions brought together. So it's not just Harry Potter, it's also the Elder Scrolls series, which is a video game series.
Okay, so what's it called?
Harry Potter, Spawn of Akatosh.
Okay,
yeah.
Harry Potter, Spawn of Akatosh.
Yeah, and that's just one of the stories I have there.
Okay,
because
cool.
I actually have another one there too.
Cool.
But,
well, if you can get me there, clearly, I've not read your stuff because I don't. So I want to. So you can write that down for me.
Okay.
And I can go and check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize you even had that.
Yeah.
I remember a while back you saying something about that you put a story up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know that. So it's cool.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about other people reading your stuff, your creation?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So it's funny because, like, in the beginning, it's hard to get that kickstart for you to produce this.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, you don't feel any hesitation on just putting it out there and let everybody seeing it. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I think one of the things about fan fiction is that no one really admits that they write it. because it can be embarrassing at times to admit that you like a certain series or something like that.
Oh.
So
well, you clearly are not embarrassed by it because you just told everybody where to find you and what you do, which is why would anybody? Oh no!
Oh no!
Wow.
It's not. Oh no! It's just it's one of the things about fan fiction is that sometimes they're horribly written.
Okay.
Sometimes they're fantastically written.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the weird ones too, but we don't talk about those.
Okay. Okay. All right.
But anyway, the thing about it is that whenever you hear the term fan fiction, historically with people that don't read fan fiction, they think of the teenage girl with a notebook held tightly to her chest and everything.
Oh, okay. Right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it can be any different subject.
Yeah.
And right.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about when some are good and some are not so good, and
Yeah.
I mean, you just walk into a bookstore, you're going to see that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not every, and there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah.
But this is a huge deal. Like I don't want to just gloss over this fact that we're talking about you writing. This was such a daunting task for you when you were in school, and I want to talk about it because you clearly feel so comfortable and happy and kind of relieved that you've done this.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And there are some, kids in school now that are still struggling they're still in that situation that you used to be in.
Yeah.
Where they've got to, turn something out that they're not wanting to do.
Right.
And this you're excited about because this might be somebody else's characters, but the storyline that you created is yours.
Yes.
Well, what happens last week, we talked about you not really wanting to go to college because they make you take courses that you're not interested in.
Yeah.
And you don't see why they want to make you take a class that has nothing to do with the field of study.
Right.
Sort of, I look at the assignments that you were given in school the same way. And boy, it is hard for you if you have to write about something that you're not interested in.
Yeah, or heaven forbid, it's something anathema to what I believe in.
Right.
Like, I remember in high school, or it was college, I forget which one, but I had to write an essay from a certain point of view that the professor or teacher or whatever wanted me to do it from.
Mm-hmm.
And it was completely the opposite of where I stand and what I believe in.
Okay. And so you couldn't do it?
I couldn't do it.
Right. And so...
Because it was just so wrong to me.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's something that you are very particular about the things that you like and the things that you don't like. You're pretty clear about that.
Yeah.
And when there's not a line that says, okay, well now this is for school, and so this serves a purpose because you need to get this grade so you can go, pass the class or whatever it is. That conversation doesn't even reach you because if it's not something that you're interested in, if it's not something that makes sense to you, it doesn't click.
Right.
So sometimes even getting started is not going to happen because you're so detached from even the concept of needing to do this.
Yeah. And one of the...
There's a lot of things in life that we end up needing to do that we don't necessarily want to do.
Right. And that's one of the arguments that teachers and professors have had with me. Is that exact argument. That in life you're going to have to do things you don't want to do. Let's start with this one.
Right. And it didn't get you anywhere. It didn't get them anywhere.
Right.
Yeah. So, have you gotten better at that?
Yes and no. It's been difficult trying to let me rephrase that. When it's far and few between that something like that happens now.
Mm-hmm.
But when it does, it's like me not saying I don't want to go to college. Where it's just kind of hidden or whatever.
Right. Where you really have to, like, kind of have a revelation.
Yeah.
As to how you feel about that. But that's a good, that's a good example, because in school, you couldn't get started on these writing assignments. It's almost like, because you're like frozen. The same thing.
And physically frozen.
Yeah.
Because mentally, like let's say it's an essay on, I remember I had an IQ test.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the parts of it was an essay that I had to write.
Mm-hmm.
It was a timed essay.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a picture that it showed, and I had to write a paragraph or two about what was going on with the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the pencil ready and I put it down. And I looked at the person who was testing me. I said, unless I can use a computer for this, it's not going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Because while I have so many different ideas, I can't get any of them out in a coherent fashion.
Right.
Because there's so many different ideas. Like this image was like of woolly mammoth being hunted or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ew.
by cavemen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I had so many different story ideas for it.
Mm-hmm.
Just within seconds, I had at least 12 I could think of.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't. Not only could I not choose one of those,
Mm-hmm.
but all of those stories had variations on them that I could pick and choose from each one and different things like that. And it's difficult. So very difficult to use a pen and paper
Mm-hmm.
or a pencil and a paper to write out a story.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for myself. Because if I'm to write something, it has to be fully formulated in my head. Or at the very least, already be written out somehow.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning where, like, let's say I have a concept. Or like, the what was it called? A spider graph or whatever? Where it had little speech bubbles that were attached by a line and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's like a diagram. Shoot, I just saw one yesterday.
Spider diagram.
Yes, I just saw it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And if there's something like that and it has like a little phrase or something like that written in it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that makes it a heck of a lot easier. But if you're just having to write out an essay
Mm-hmm.
and you can't use one of those or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
good luck getting me to write anything.
Right.
Because it's just not going to happen.
Right. And I think it's important to point out that it's not you being stubborn.
Right.
It's not you being difficult.
Right.
It's not you wanting to have things your own way. Because those things were said about you to me when you're going through school.
Oh, wow.
So, it is not those things. It's that you feel so. These are my words, so you can tell me if this is right or not. It's my impression that you're just feeling so overwhelmed, and you don't know how to start. And no matter what, no matter the consequences, it's not going to help.
Right. one thing that I just said
Mm-hmm.
of using a spider diagram or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
if I have the option to use something like that,
Yeah.
I didn't recognize it at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but having something like that available to me would help so much with writing an essay.
So you think maybe that people on the spectrum, if they're wanting to start, they have to do a writing assignment.
Mm-hmm.
That if they started out with this
Not even where it's connected or anything, just with sentences that they think would go great in it, or phrases or something like that that would
so you're
not
okay
not
writing
necessarily in order, but separated from each one, and then whether it be on a piece of paper or something like that, like a tiny piece of paper, like a Post-it note or something, and then you put it on where it's supposed to be, and then you put the next one where it's supposed to be, and then just order it like that.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. You know, when I write for stand up
Mm-hmm.
or a speech,
Mm-hmm.
I use post index cards.
Yeah.
And I write something on an index card, and I have them on the floor in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at them and try to place them where the flow is going to make sense.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say, how the flow,
Yeah.
which makes the most sense with the flow.
Yeah.
So would that help?
Yeah.
Would that kind of thing help you?
Yeah. And I think one thing I should point out is that this is an after the fact realization.
Like right now?
Yeah.
Like in this moment?
Yeah.
Yes.
That
right.
I'm realizing that this would have helped me so much.
Right.
And
that's awesome.
yeah. And so for me to try and do something like this, if I had had the access to try and do something like that, and had the knowledge I have now to be able to do it, not do it. Now I'm doing it.
Let's just say that I'm asking you to do something, that I'm asking you to write something.
Mm-hmm.
How could it be helpful, and what is the best way that you think that, like, if I was going to introduce something like that to you? Because would it be it's the idea that they're on separate pieces of paper so they're not set in stone where they go?
Right.
Or is there a list on another piece of paper, do you think? Or does it need to be separate? Is that separation so
think
helpful?
it could be on another list, but then you write it on the individual pieces of paper so that they're separate. Yes.
So it's the separation of ideas or sentences
or phrases
that help the most.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a huge help.
Yeah. One of the issues I remember in high school was that I did not like the pre-planning for writing. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't like the whole idea of a spider thing. It didn't sit well with me. Because it just didn't make sense, because you either write something or you don't.
Yeah.
And that's another issue that I had at the time in high school and middle school, was that it was just, I could either write something or I couldn't. It was black and white.
Well, you were very rigid.
Yes.
In your way of thinking. So sometimes, even if there were
variations or
very, 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 like you couldn't see, like when we talked about when we would go out to eat and you didn't realize that you could
substitute
or take an ingredient out sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes,
right?
And so if there's Alfredo that has chicken and shrimp, you could say, I don't want the shrimp.
Yeah.
But you didn't realize that. It took a long time for you to understand
Right.
that it can be different than what's written there in front of you.
Right.
And so, wait, when you're saying that it either was written or it wasn't written, you didn't realize that they were, like, you wouldn't entertain that there might be tools that could help you write?
Absolutely. Absolutely correct.
Okay. How, if somebody's going through that right now, how would you recommend bringing that up in a way that is not like everything else? That's just kind of, because I know that there's a lot of things that were brought up for you in school and it just kind of seemed like
Right.
it's just annoying to you.
Right. My first thought is that if you do have a thought, write it down real quick somewhere else.
Okay.
Not on the essay you're writing, but on a scrap piece of paper or something.
So what if, do you like the idea of index cards?
Those
Like-
are fine, yeah.
Like if somebody, maybe that's
That
a way
might
of
that
doing
might
it.
be too big, but yeah.
Well,
I know there's small ones, but
you
I'm
see
saying
those up there?
yeah, those are like cut in quarters.
Right. And they're different colors.
Yeah.
Remember what I told you about the colors in my list?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, right. And so, yeah, exactly. So I have the biggest index cards. I have the regular index cards, and then I have these that are, like you said, like a quarter size of a regular index card
Mhm.
that are
Color coded.
color coded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the index cards, that's one way of getting an idea that's separate.
Mhm. But
Like
still
it's an
fits
idea,
in.
it's down, it's written down, but it doesn't have to be cemented in a place just yet.
Right. And one thing that I think would really help out would be if you just took a bunch of those thoughts and wrote them down, and then you tried to fit them together. Maybe reword them in a different way and write it on a new index card in a better way in a way that you find to be better.
So whenever a flow chart is used
Mm-hmm.
and you have an idea and then things stem off from there,
Mm-hmm.
does that did help you or it didn't? You call it like a spider
Right.
diagram
It's that concept. It's not necessarily a spider one that I say would work. It's the idea that you can, for lack of a better way of saying it, cut and paste.
right.
You're writing down the idea on an individual piece of paper. You can put it wherever you want because it's still free flowing.
Well-
And you can connect it in other ways with other ones and this, that, and the other. Like a spider web one would.
So what I'm asking you about specifically
Mm-hmm.
is that, let's just say you were in one of those periods of time where you're having troubles getting started.
Mm-hmm.
If I came to you with index cards and explained that to you, that might or might not click for you. If what
Excuse me.
this flow chart that has basically a box and then coming out of it and then it leads to different directions, that there's
Yeah.
one idea to the next to the next. If I came to you with that, would that have helped you then? Because that's what I'm asking you. Because this is what you're saying works for you now. Like you're going, hey, if I had something like that back then.
Right.
So
What I'm saying though is that it's a bit different because it's a mix between that flowchart you were saying, the spiderweb thing,
Yeah.
and a couple of other ideas too. It's a mix of all
Okay.
of them.
Okay. All at the same time.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what I'm saying is that if I had something like that, it would have made things a lot easier for me. Not necessarily for others, but it
Sure.
would for me.
Okay.
And
Would you have needed help to get started on that?
probably yes.
So if I had said, do you know the name of this story? Or do you know the characters? Or do you know, like would that kind of helped, would that kind of conversation been helpful?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Because we did.
The only thing I disagree with is the title.
Okay.
Because the title, I think, should come either last or towards the middle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you don't know what it's going to be like as a whole until you're almost done.
Right. Right. But is that helpful, do you think, for people if they were given if the conversation happened, or is it better? Okay.
Because it's not only is it bouncing ideas off of somebody else, even if it's just you being the one who's talking, not like you being the one who's writing.
Right. We tried this an awful lot when you were in school, where we would spend a lot of time talking it through with you, like we're talking about right now, but we didn't have those other tools that you're talking about.
Right.
And so even though we would come up with some good ideas,
I would not remember them.
They would be gone.
Yeah.
And then when the conversation was over, you still didn't get started.
Right.
So if you had those separate places to write this, away from the actual what I guess people write any number of places. So in the middle of this,
yeah.
He's taking a picture of Einstein right now.
He stopped.
Einstein, when we do these podcasts now, Einstein is on my lap.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, Oliver left us. It was a month ago on Sunday. Yeah. And so it's been very difficult for Einstein because he's only known life with his brother Oliver for 12 years. So he's been very, very
clingy
to me.
Yeah.
He cries when I'm not around. He's just he always wants to be with me constantly, and which of course I don't mind. I just just adore him, so I don't mind at all. But so they used to be, we used to try to keep them quiet, and we would take their collars off, and they've always been in the room with us when we've done these podcasts, but they're a little bit further, put them on the bed or whatever and get them, take their collars off, try to keep them quiet, and we just let Einstein do what he's going to do now. So we go. So Josh,
yeah.
So that sounds like that's the answer of what you were just talking about. Because I want to finish up today, is that to give somebody the idea of writing this in a different place than whatever it is, their Word document on wherever it is that they're writing, to put this somewhere else, not on that page.
Right. It could even be a whole different Word document.
Yeah, okay.
Just with spaces in between the thoughts.
I really like my iPad because it can take me from one idea to the next super fast. There's a place on here on my iPad that's just notes. I guess I don't, you know what? I don't know if this came with it or not. No, it did. It did come with it. Yeah, notes. So you can use your pencil and write the notes in, and then those can be incorporated into whatever is the story afterwards. So I think that's a really good idea. I love it because I can do it so fast. I can go from notes to Word just by swiping over. And because for me, using a computer, by the time I go into a different... I would just lose it. The idea, because sometimes it just has to be so fast that I write it down.
Right.
So I go over to notes, jot it down, then go back to Word, and go back to where I was. Yeah. So that makes sense to me. Well, I can tell that you're kind of done because you're just playing with Einstein. Anyway, why don't you tell everybody one more time where they can find your story that you wrote?
Okay.
Fanfiction.net
/u/6977075.
Okay.
Which is my username's number
Okay.
that's associated with it. So.
Well, I think it's pretty awesome. I don't. As far as how you got here today, life has been really difficult for about a month for you. Actually since December, and not just a month, but since December, and a lot of changes, a lot of new things you're taking on. You kind of had some periods where you weren't functioning, couldn't really get stuff done, and you've worked through that. You've gone to the with your psychiatrist off a lot of conversation. She's been fantastic. She is a expert in medication management, and so basically she used that gene testing that was done to base what medication you're on that's going to help you the most.
Which one would be the most beneficial and effective?
Right, because there's some that's just not going to work, no matter how
effective they are for others.
Other people, it's just not going to, And you take, what's the one that you take to help to absorb the medicine?
Folate Max.
Folate Max is something that I just get from Amazon that she recommended to help it to be the medication to be absorbed
more efficiently.
Yes, so can be at a therapeutic level.
Yeah.
Anyway, for you, that's made a difference. It's not for everybody, but for you, that's really made a difference. And I'm just so proud of you because you keep on getting up and. Taking steps forward. So good for you. Well, I hope this helps other people too.
Oh my gosh, yes, I hope so too.
It's like a revelation for you.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and listening. Please give us a 5-star review. Go to my website. It's sonyaking.com. SONYAKING. It is time to feed Einstein. So,
so he's letting you know.
He's letting me know. We are gonna go do that right now. But anyway, thanks so much. It's always awesome getting to hang out with you. And take care of yourself. We'll talk to you next week. Love you.
Bye.